First of all, my apologies for not being able to be with you today. I hope that this video recording, which is done on a mobile device, will be of some help though. Because I'm the first person speaking from the panel, I thought it might be useful to give you a kind of a big picture overview really of mobile learning and what it means for English language teachers. I think there are three things first of all to keep in mind when we talk about mobile learning. The first one is that we often associate mobile learning with mobile phones or cell phones, and I think this is a mistake. We need to remember that when we talk about mobile devices or handheld devices, we include not just mobile phones and smartphones, but also things like iPods, cameras, even things like gaming consoles like the Nintendo or the Sony PSP. So in terms of mobile learning devices, we have a fairly wide range of options. The second thing that often people associate with mobile learning is the idea of it being on the move. So you not being in any specific place while you're doing your mobile learning. Now this is of course one option, but mobile learning can equally be brought into the classroom. I'll talk about that more in a minute. The last thing I want to talk about is the idea of apps, that again mobile learning is often associated with the idea of apps and apps alone. Again, this is one thing that you can bring into mobile learning, but we do have more options. Okay, I'd like to look now at some of the practical considerations that teachers need to keep in mind if they do want to try mobile learning in their language teaching. I think one of the first issues that teachers can think about is whether you want your students to do mobile learning on the move, as we talked about earlier, and or in the classroom. It's not a matter of either or. We could use both, of course. We could have students accessing mobile content on their devices outside of class time. For example, listening to podcasts, using dictionaries, using flashcards to improve their vocabulary and so on. But we can also be using mobile devices in class. We might be using them for students to record themselves doing presentations or doing speaking pair work. They could be using their mobile devices to search the web for information and so on. So we have both of these options, I think. A second practical consideration is what devices are your learners going to use. So on one end of the spectrum we may have class sets, let's say class sets of netbooks or of iPod touches or of some sort of mobile device. Or you could have your learners using their own mobile devices. And there's growing support for the so-called BYOD movement. BYOD meaning bring your own device, where students are bringing what they normally have into the classroom, often smartphones and so on. Another practical consideration is that of content. What sort of mobile content are you going to provide to your learners? On the one hand, we may have rich content, which includes multimedia, images and so on. Even the possibility of integrating social networking, where learners can communicate with each other and with others outside the classroom. And on the other end of the scale we have what I like to call discrete content, or little bits of content. And this is where perhaps apps would fall, where you have learners doing ad hoc bits of language learning using these very bitty pieces like vocabulary flashcards or grammar activities and so on and so forth. Again, it's not a matter of either or, but you want to keep in mind that mobile learning does not only mean apps. And it doesn't only mean apps made for language teaching if we are talking about apps. And while we're talking about content, we need to think about whether we're using push content or pull content. By push content, I mean, are you as a teacher going to be sending content to your students in the form of quizzes or polls or SMS content, or telling them what to use on their mobile devices? Or are you going to encourage your learners to go out and find their own mobile content depending on their interests and their needs and the kinds of activities that they enjoy doing? So you could send your students out to go and find podcasts, for example, that they like, that they then pull down into their mobile devices and use on their own. Again, it's not a matter of either or. You may want to use both. You may want to use pull content more out of class and push content actually inside the classroom, or again, a mixture of both. And while we're talking about content, we need to think about whether we have our learners consume content by using apps or listening to podcasts and so on, or whether we're getting them to produce content using their mobile devices. That may include audio, recording themselves or each other, or videoing themselves, or creating artifacts, mind maps, images, film, whatever it may be, on their own mobile devices. Again, it's a matter of not either or, but we can do both. And the final area I'd like to look at is that of strategic use of mobile devices versus discrete use of mobile devices. By strategic use, I mean taking your mobile devices and your mobile content and integrating it thoroughly into the curriculum. The other end of the scale would be this discrete use, by which I mean a kind of ad hoc, bitty use. So every now and again, mobile devices are used for something. Of course, we can use both, but within the classroom, it makes sense to try and integrate your mobile devices and learning into the wider curriculum. So there we go. Those are some of the practical implications I think that we have in introducing mobile learning to our learners and starting to integrate it into our teaching. I do have a number of blog posts about mobile learning, including covering these issues, so do please have a look at that when you have time. Enjoy the rest of the panel. Goodbye.